Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you're here. If you are new here, my name is Kaitlin and today I'm going to be doing the book cover telephone tag. So Elizabeth from Reading Riley created this super fun game, and essentially the premise of the game is you take the cover of one book and you pick some sort of element off of the cover of that book and you try to connect it to a different book to its cover. And I think the idea is that just like a game of telephone, the challenge will go on and on and on until everyone has done it. But it has been so much fun watching these. I've had the best time seeing how everyone's brains work and how they, focus in on certain elements that connect to a different book. It's just been so much fun, but there are so many of them out there. I will be sure to link a few of my personal friends that have done them in the description below, as well as Elizabeth's original video. And of course, I will link down below my sweet friend Lauren's video. She is actually the one who tagged me and suggested that I do this video. So I will definitely be sure to link hers below so that you guys can see how I'm starting this off with her last book. But without further ado, I'm gonna hop right into the game. Okay, so like I said, I am starting out with Lauren's last book that she used in her challenge. So she used Middle Game by Seanan McGuire, and this book has been on my TBR forever, and I just haven't ever gotten to it. But from what I understand, this book is about two twins, Roger and Dodger, and they are not fully human, and they have, I think, some special powers. But they weren't human born either. They were actually created by an alchemist. And all I really know is that the reasons for creating them were not maybe the most pure. And he intends to use the twins and their powers to gain power of some sort or money. I can't remember exactly what I have heard it is, but something a little bit more sinister than just, wanting to create two twins. And so with this cover, as you can see, there is flames coming out of the fingertips of the hand. And so that was the element that I focused in on. And so I am connecting it to Showdown by Ted Dekker. And this book, obviously you can see it has the flames coming from the hands. And this book is the first book in the Paradise trilogy by Ted Dekker, and it has been the longest time since I read this book. I want to say I read it in high school, maybe, like early high school. So it has been a hot minute, but I absolutely love Ted Dekker's books, and I have to say a thank you to Elizabeth for creating this challenge because I had kind of forgotten how much I love his works until I was perusing my bookshelves to do this challenge, and I found my collection of the books that I have read of his over the years, and it really makes me want to go and see what he's written lately and pick something up of his. So thank you, Elizabeth, for reminding me how much I love certain authors that I might have forgotten about. But this trilogy follows this town where this guy shows up, and he is kind of a mysterious newcomer and, kind of creepy vibes. Think like long black trench coat, a hat down low kind of vibes. And he actually has the power to fulfill anyone's unfulfilled dreams. And so that's why the trilogy is called the Paradise Trilogy, because the idea is that he would be creating paradise, but there's a lot more sinister stuff going on. And Ted Dekker is kind of, in my opinion, one of the kings of writing a good versus evil story. And I'm just a huge fan. So I'm really glad that I remembered that. And this is what I connected to Middle Game. So when I was trying to connect to this cover, I was thinking the fire is held by a hand. So in that same vein, I went for a cover that had a hand on it, and I chose Clara and the Sun. And I have not read this one yet. This has been on my TBR since last year, I think it was. I'm hoping to maybe get to it this summer, but from what I know and remember about this one, it is following an artificial intelligent young girl named Clara, and just kind of her experience of the world. I've heard really good things. Peep my dog. Apparently she wants to be YouTube famous. So, you know, we're just gonna let her do her thing. But I've heard really good things about it, and so I'm excited to try to get to this one soon. So to connect with this cover, I noticed immediately that the red of this cover is actually almost the exact same red as another book that I just read and I am absolutely in love with. So I had to connect it to The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. I don't really know exactly which it is, but this book was so much fun. I actually read it while I had COVID and it brought me so much joy. So I'm super grateful for this book. And as you can see, the red on the spine and around the border is almost the exact same red as Clara and the Sun. So this book follows 4 senior citizens who are all a part of the same retirement village, and they actually meet every Thursday and they cover unsolved cases as amateur sleuths, and they toss around theories and ideas when one day they actually find themselves connected to a real life murder happening within the village. So they set out to try to solve the murder themselves with some help from local law enforcement. So this was so much fun and I could not recommend this book enough. So I am connecting this one based on the fox that's right there. I tried to find a book that had another fox on the cover, which I was gonna connect it to Shady Hollow, but at this point I feel like everyone's just kind of tired of me talking about it, so I decided not to because that cover has a fox right on the cover. But I actually connected it instead to a different animal, and so I chose to connect it to Bunny. This obviously has a bunny on the cover. This is by Mona Awad, and I just have to put a big disclaimer out there that this book is not for everyone. And if you are new-ish to BookTube, then you may not have heard of it, but it was really popular, I would say maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago. This book follows Samantha, who is on a college campus getting her fiction degree for writing fiction, and she becomes part of this writing group that meets, I think, every week. And everyone else in this group is part of a social group called the Bunnies. And there's some majorly weird things going on with these girls that all consider themselves bunnies. And they are kind of like a cult. And so you follow Samantha after she's been invited to a party of the bunnies, and you just kind of follow her journey to try to figure out what in the heck is up with this cult, which on the surface sounds like a super fun thriller, like dark academia vibes, which it is. But like I said, this book is not going to be for everyone, and it is very weird. Like the weirdest book I've ever read, probably. But I personally loved it. Absolutely loved it. I thought it was brilliant, utter genius. So just do with that what you will, but back to the game. I connected this one because of the writing. It looks like handwriting, like in chalk. And so I connected based on the writing of like looking like handwriting and not like typed font with For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. And this book I have not read yet, and I'm excited to get to it. It is another dark academia as well, but this book follows a professor at a prestigious university, and I think he has some unorthodox teaching methods. We'll just say that because I don't know much more about it than that. It sounds super, super good, and I can't wait to get to this one. So if you have read this one and you enjoyed it, be sure to let me know down below. Okay, and so this is where it kind of gets a little bit like stretched. So bear with me, but my thought was this very obviously is written on top of like a portrait. And so I'm gonna assume it's written on top of the portrait as some type of threat. is what it looks like to me. So I went with that kind of theme, and I connected this one to As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the third book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. And as you can see, it has As Good as Dead written on this tape in what looks like blood to me. And I'm assuming it is a threat to our main character, Pip, who in the first book decides that she is going to pick up an old murder case that has actually been solved, but she is not convinced that they got the right person. And so as her senior project, she tries to kind of prove his innocence. And of course, she finds herself into some trouble. But after the conclusion of that book, she starts a podcast, and a true crime podcast. And I believe in this one, she is being followed by someone, and they are starting to threaten her. So I am really excited to get to this one. I've only read the first two. I have not gotten to this one yet, but highly recommend this series. I'm not a big YA thriller fan, but this series is definitely an outlier. I absolutely have been enjoying this series, so excited to pick this one up. But to connect it to my next one, I went with like blood on the cover because this looks like blood to me. So I connected it with one of my favorite thrillers, The One, by John Mars. And this book is just such a unique thriller. I think that's why it stands out to me, and I just really, really enjoyed it. The concept of it was super intriguing, and I will say, if you've watched the show, I think it's on Netflix. Yes, I think so. Isn't there normally like a Netflix sticker on the cover? The one time I need there to be one, there's not. But I think it's Netflix, but if you watched the series, read the book, because I didn't feel like the series did the book justice at all, and they totally deviated from the book. So anyways, this book though follows multiple people, and there has been technology that's been released that they can actually test for your soulmate. And of course that obviously wreaks havoc in the world, because so many different married couples are now taking this test and finding out that the person that they married is not the one. But one of the people in this thriller, one of the characters is actually a serial killer, and they get matched with the detective who is working the case. And so it's just super unique. I really, really enjoyed this one. So would highly recommend this one. But this is gonna be a little bit of a stretch too. But, just bear with me. I was going off of my own shelves, and it was really difficult. But with the blue cover, I kind of tried to match colors, and I came up with The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. Not this blue up here, but it kind of fades into a darker blue, and the blue down here is almost an exact match to the one. So we rolled with it. But The Wife Upstairs was actually a big hit for me too, and so I was excited to recommend it to you guys if y'all hadn't read it yet. But The Wife Upstairs follows a woman named Jane, and she, while walking a dog one day, meets this guy named Eddie, and they kind of have a whirlwind romance, and they fall for each other really quickly, and they end up getting married. But whenever some weird things start coming up about Eddie's late wife, Jane starts to get some suspicions about him. And so this book is just a thriller that follows that story to its end, and I really enjoyed this. I don't want to tell you guys kind of what the inspiration for this was, because the book that inspired it will pretty much give the plot twist away. So I'm not going to tell you guys that, but I love the book that this was based off of. So of course I enjoyed it. But I do highly recommend this one. It's a super fast read. It's way bingeable, and I feel like Rachel Hawkins' writing in this was just really good. So I ended up connecting this book because of the flowers, and then you also kind of have like purple in the flowers. So I connected this one to It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. And I'm sure that this book needs no introduction because I kind of feel like everybody has read it at this point. But just in case you haven't, it follows Lily, and she grew up in an abusive household, and she grows up and kind of parts ways with that past, and she ends up meeting this guy named Ryle, and they fall in love. And one day when they're at this restaurant, this guy comes over to the table, and it ends up being a guy from her past, from her childhood, who was a really, really good friend of hers. And so there's kind of some tension there. And obviously some other things go down. It's really, really heavy. I will just say that. It's a really heavy book, which I don't typically read a lot of heavy. So it was definitely kind of out of my comfort zone, out of my element, but I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's an important story to be told. And I think Colleen Hoover did an amazing job telling it. Her writing is so bingeable. It is so readable. I kind of feel like even if you weren't the biggest fan of Colleen Hoover's books, you still could never say that she's not a good writer. I just don't know how somebody could make that argument because her writing is so bingeable. That has to merit a lot of talent. And so anyways, that's a side rant. But anyways, as you can tell, the reason why I connected it is because this cover has these flowers that are kind of the same purple as that was in the other flowers. And then obviously the flowers connect. So that is my last book. I am going to end the tag there, but I will be sure to tag a few friends down below that I don't think have done this yet. But other than that, another big thank you to Elizabeth for coming up with this game. It is so much fun, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!